Good morning, everyone. As you're coming in, if you could put your name and your organization in the chat box for me, please. Thank you.
It's a cute little baby.
David Marty is?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sateria Hollenshed, and I am the program coordinator for the House of Ruth Madison program. If you all can drop your name and your organization in the chat, we will be getting started at 11 a.m. Thank you.
I'm gonna say, would you say, Marianne, if you want to do your introductions, you can say them now? What?
Hi, Marianne. If you would like to do your introductions, you can do so now.
Can she be re-enrolled?
Can you, Anita?
Is that what you want?
Yeah, so you're inviting me to say a word to the French women or French-speaking people who are with us today?
Correct. You can go ahead.
Thank you for this opportunity. So I just would like to greet everyone. Thank you, House of Ruth, for the work you're doing. We're very impressed, and we've been supporting you for a little while with our French Francophone association called Washington Accueil. It's more like a welcome group for Francophone coming to DC area. And we are mainly women. And we have been supporting you with a piano bar event where we raised $4,000 for you about 2 years ago for the playground. And we want to continue to support you. And this was a beautiful opportunity for Women's Month to get a look inside what you're doing. So hello, bonjour. We hope you enjoy.
Thank you.
You're on mute.
Uh-oh. Good morning. My name is Sateria Hollenshed, and I am your host for today's virtual open house. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you guys don't mind, if you could please put your name and your organization in the chat for us, and we will be getting started in about 2 minutes.
What area of Nashville are you in? Well, the last 12 years was on orthopedic.
Just a reminder, can everyone please hit mute? Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sateria Hollenshed, and I am your host for today's virtual open house. I want to thank everyone for taking some time to spend with House of Ruth today as we share about our programs and services. I want to open with a message from our president and CEO, Sandra Jackson.
The House of Ruth was really good to us.
This is exactly what I needed.
They help you, they guide you, they give you strength.
I came to the House of Ruth because I was homeless.
I am a victim of domestic violence.
I have 3 children. I'm coming from a domestic violence situation.
My son, he's doing much better in school, I can tell already.
They really helped my children as well, and now they are all productive citizens.
House of Ruth for me is basically a place to get you back on your feet and help you long term.
I don't want no more drugs. I just want to be a grandmother, a daughter, and a mother to my kids.
I have friends here now, really true friends. People that work here show me just genuinely unconditional love, something that I've never experienced.
Good morning and welcome to House of Ruth's virtual open house. My name is Sandra Jackson. I am the president and CEO of House of Ruth, and we are very excited to have you with us this morning. 2021 is House of Ruth's 45th year in service, serving our community. We are excited about the progress from where we have come, serving 8 women initially in 1976. And today we serve more than 1,000 women, children, and families. We started with 1 program, but today we're happy to say that we have more than 15 programs, service-enriched housing across the city, from transitional housing to permanent supportive housing and even a scattered site model. We have a brand new child development center. As a matter of fact, I'm standing in that center today, and I'm very excited about the fact that we have been able to expand our child development services for our children, and not only for House of Ruth's children, but children in many other programs across the city. As all of you know, 2020 was a challenge for all of us, and many of us have had to pivot around how to continue to provide those services to our community in partnership with you. We are excited to be able to share with you in particular this morning, as you will listen to many of our program staff that are here today talk about the specifics of our services, how you can continue to be involved, how you can continue to access those services, and how we have been able to transform our services to accommodate around these challenges that we faced in 2020. Thank you so much for being here, and I believe that you will find that there are great things that are continuing to happen here at House of Ruth.
Thank you for your attention. We have 5 videos that are going to walk you through the services and programs that we provide at the House of Ruth. We'll have questions after each video segment. The first video is an explanation of our intake process as well as our transitional programs for singles and families. I think you'll see a familiar face in this video. Hi, I'm Sateria Hollenshed, Program Coordinator for the Single Site-Based Programs. I work with many of the single women that first come to House of Ruth to help assist them in improving their self-sufficiency, which may mean getting situated in transitional housing, moving on to permanent housing, and also moving on to other community resources. The intake process entails calling the intake line, speaking to the intake coordinator, and providing answers to a variety of different questions. What's going on? What caused your homelessness? Where did you stay last night? What type of services are you looking for? The eligibility for the House of Ruth for singles, they have to be a female, age 18 and above, able to care for themselves. For families, they have to have children, have a history of domestic violence and mental health. We have 2 styles of transitional housing. For the singles, it is a shared living environment. So when I say shared, they are sharing a dormitory. In the family style housing, it is an apartment that the family shares with just the members of their immediate family. Both locations are safe, secured locations. House of Ruth has been around for many years, so safety is one of our top priorities for our clients. When you first come into the programs, the case management team will be working with you on what is your exit plan. We want to make sure that you have the tools and skills that you need so that you are able to move on. So while at House of Ruth, many of our women that we work with, they come into transitional housing because they have experienced some type of trauma. One of our goals is to make sure that we meet the clients where they are and that we are able to address those complex situations. We partner with many community agencies as well as with the House of Ruth Domestic Violence Support Center in providing trauma-informed care, trauma-informed groups to assist the women in developing some healthy coping skills to help them move forward with their plan of self-sufficiency. I love my job. It's a very fulfilling job to see the progress of when someone comes in their initial phase of homelessness and watching them grow and develop into something beautiful. Throughout our presentation, you'll hear all the wonderful things that we're doing at House of Ruth. We're so much more than housing. Before we talk about the other programs, was there any questions about our intake process or our transitional programs? We have Jasmine Daniels and Shawnice Hawkins, and they can answer any questions that you may have about transitional or the intake process.
Is there a limit to the number of individuals in both housing programs?
So for our program at A New Way, we're able to host up to 12 families at a time.
So here at Madison, we're able to have 50 single women. And at the blended singles program, I think it's up to 23. Am I right, Millicent?
It's 24.
Oh, 24.
14 Three Sisters and 10 New Pathways.
Okay. So definitely we will have the videos posted on our website as well as our social media, and you'll definitely be able to learn more information about our transitional programs as well as our coordinated intake process.
I have a question, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Congratulations for everything you're doing for these women. It breaks my heart.
Thank you.
And my question is, do you take people, women come to the door and you welcome them, or there is a procedure that you have that's established, kind of an investigation going into the background and asserting that there is violence?
Okay, so in order to get services with House of Ruth, they must call our intake line. That number is 202-597-5846. Once again, 202-597-5846. Once you call the number, you'll speak to our intake coordinator and he'll gather some additional information about the potential person and see if House of Ruth is the option. And if not, we'll be able to refer them to somewhere else in the community. There is a question in the chat. It says, is there an age range for singles in your program? In order to receive services at House of Ruth, you must be 18 years or older. Are there any other questions?
I had a really quick question. Hi, my name's Candace. I'm from Dash. Do you guys serve transgender women?
We serve anyone that identifies as a woman.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
There's another question in the chat. It says, are you currently taking intakes? We are taking intakes on a continuous basis. Just call the intake line, and if our programs are full, then the person would be placed on the waiting list. And we have been continuously taking intakes during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Did you see an increase in the demand with an increase with domestic violence with COVID, and then an increase in the demand for you?
So we have seen an increase in the demand for services. I can't necessarily correlate it to COVID or not, but we have seen an increase just because of the current state of our economy right now.
Is there a waiting list now, or do you have slots available?
For our singles program, there is a waiting list, and there is also a waiting list for our families. Okay. All right, thank you very much. That was a great discussion. We're now going to talk about our permanent supportive housing programs for singles and families. Oh, wait a minute.
It's a question in the box about how is a person protected if they work. So
Okay. How is the person protected if they work? Can you provide a little bit more details? So at our programs, we do encourage people to obtain employment. So I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to, but if a person is working, we do work with them and their work schedules. And we'll talk about therapy in a little while. We have a presentation about the therapy services offered through House of Ruth. So next up is Chris Robinson, and we're going to hear from her talking on her video, talking about housing options for singles and for families.
My name is Chris Robinson, and I am the program coordinator for the Hope Rising program. The purpose of Hope Rising is to service the women and children in the greatest need in the District of Columbia who suffer from mental health illnesses and traumatic disorders. We service the women for a long term. We are considered to be permanent supportive housing, a permanent supportive housing program in which the families are able to receive wraparound services. The biggest challenge when receiving a family is that they have come from a traumatic past. And so the challenge is that when you have a resident that walks inside of the door, they don't know what they're walking into. They're entering the door on almost, for instance, a wing and a prayer. They're praying to be accepted into the program, but they also don't know what road that they are heading down. And so we like to introduce our program as a investment to the women. That we like to let them know that they're investing in in their future and in their children's future. Once they come in, we can assure them that we can take care of their sheltering need, and which is at that time is probably their most immediate need, is the fact that they don't have shelter. So when they enter into the program and they understand that I am safe here, I'm safe here, I have a community here, these people are here to help me. When the ladies start to indulge in services, and as they are starting to begin to heal and overcome some of the obstacles, we see a client flourish. What that means to me personally, to be able to service women at our permanent supportive housing program, it's a great fulfillment. The fact that I opened the door with a smile on my face, or because I asked them how they were doing, or because I was able to, or my staff was able to connect them to a resource, you know, that I go home at the end of the day knowing that I did something good.
In addition to providing permanent supportive housing for families, we also provide permanent supportive housing for singles. The singles also do apartment style living. The apartments are shared apartments. So on the call now, we have Ashley Ard and Millicent Mack, and they can answer any questions that you may have about permanent supportive housing for both singles and families. Are there any questions at this time?
Is the person protected from abuse if they work in abuse job location?
So there's a question in the chat. Is the person protected from abuser if they work and the abuser knows the job location? So at our programs, we do work with our individuals to ensure the safety. So when they get connected to case management services, we'll talk about safety concerns and any issues that may impact a person's safety. Are there any other questions about our permanent housing for singles or permanent housing for families?
What is the length that they're, when you say permanent, what is does the program have a limit of how many years they're in there or how many months? Because when you're saying permanent, or are they able to stay in those apartments?
So typically, we say about 3 to 5 years is what we would consider a successful time here at the Hope Rising program. Now, as far as further, they can stay as long as their child is under the age of 18, but typically it's between 3 to 5 years.
Millicent?
Yes, for the single sites, it is permanent as well, but we encourage them to actually move out independently on their own. But if they need to stay additional time, we allow them to. So, you know, providing services and resources that they need while they're staying here.
What type of help do you receive from the government? I believe it's subsidized housing. Do these women have to pay part of the rent? Is part of it covered by the government or by you?
Yes. So the women here at the single sites, they have to pay 30% of their income, whether they're working or getting Social Security, employment. So they do pay 30% of rent each month.
It's the same for permanent supportive as well. 30% of their income will go towards a rental contribution.
So we also receive funding from a variety of sources, including the government. We also receive funding grants from community agencies. So we're always looking for ways in which we can support our clients. And any way that we can assist them in moving on, we try to do that as well. One thing that I forgot to mention at the very beginning is that we are recording this presentation so that in the future, if somebody wants to come back and look at it, it'll be available. If you miss something and you think of something after, there will be a way that you can contact us. So the question in the chat says, for someone really in an unsafe environment and don't have resources to be on their own. So to kind of answer that question, the first start is always going to be our coordinated intake system. And during that time, we do an assessment to kind of see what's going on and to see what type of resources you have. While at House of Ruth, you are connected with case management services. We do have a housing specialist on our team. We have employment specialists. We also work together with a variety of different resources to link the client together. So if they want to go to school, if they want to pursue higher education, we will help them in doing what they need to do. Would a client that doesn't have a documented disability but scored low on the full SPDAT qualify for PSH? Unfortunately, PSH or the SPDAT is a different process than House of Ruth. So anyone that is going through the CAP system or the coordinated assessment housing process, that is a different process than House of Ruth. If you're going through coordinated Coordinated entry, that's a little bit different. So you would have to work with that team on getting placed. Once you come to House of Ruth, you would no longer be eligible for PSH. Those are really great questions, and this is a really great discussion that we're having. Now we're going to move on and talk about our Scattered Sites program. We have scattered sites that are for singles and for families. Up next is Ms. Benita Ward that will provide information about the scattered sites.
Hi, I'm Benita Ward. I'm the program manager for the scattered sites for the House of Ruth. The scattered sites serve women and children who are in the community. We provide services to our clients in their own apartments. The women that remain in their own apartments receive an assessment that is done, and it's determined based on their income and their ability to maintain stability independently. Within the scattered sites, the House of Ruth do assist the families and the individual women in locating appropriate housing. And once the clients find or identify the appropriate housing option, the lease can be in the client's individual name, or it could be in the House of Ruth's name, depending on the type of service that the client is receiving, whether it's rapid rehousing, transitional housing, or permanent supportive housing. Women in the Scattered Sites program receive case management services, therapy services, and access to child care services as the other programs in the House of Ruth. One of the benefits of being in the Scattered Sites program is that the clients remain in their unit and they don't have to transition to any other options within the community. They just sustain their housing option where they are. So once the single women and the families graduate from the program, they remain in the unit and they just take over the rent. What determines whether or not a client completes the program and they're ready to graduate is when they increase their income, recover from their trauma, and they are stable and able to remain self-sufficiency. The best part of my job is seeing the progress that the single women make, as well as the families being able to maintain their stability in their apartments, being able to pay their rent independently. So it is wonderful coming to work every day, making a difference in people's lives.
You can see by the various presentations, we do much more than housing. Are there any questions about the Scattered Sites programs? So there is a question in the chat. Ms. Benita, the question is client sobriety an eligibility requirement? So for House of Ruth, we do encourage our clients to engage in sober living.
I'm sorry, I was on mute.
Oh, okay.
I was saying in reference to substance abuse, it is not an eligibility requirement. We work with clients on where they are. And once they get into the program, we begin to work with them and getting them to connected to substance abuse treatment.
Thank you. So while in House of Ruth, the clients are getting case management, they're getting employment services, they're getting housing services, they're getting so much more than just housing. Are there any other questions about our scattered sites? Excuse me.
Hi, this is Laura Jackman from LIF. I just have a question, actually not about the scattered sites, but about the facilities that where you do have housing. Are those facilities owned by House of Ruth? And how many sites do you own?
That's a good question. Some of the sites are owned by House of Ruth and some of the sites are owned by someone else. Thank you. All right, our final two videos. Oh, there's another question. Benita, I'm going to read the question in the chat box. It says, does one have to approve the environment for scattered sites?
When you say approve, do you mean the client If you're referring to the client, we work mutually together in identifying the appropriate housing option. However, sometimes there are barriers such as credit, background checks, and limited income, but they do have a say in what kind of area they can live in.
So David said, what about the quality of housing, neighborhood, etc.?
So every apartment that is selected, again, the clients have an option in identifying which areas that are realistic within their income. We look and search for several different options. And we also have a housing inspector come out and assess the unit before any client moves in.
Thank you. The next question says, does this include Maryland or only DC area?
So the scatter sites have a multitude of different programs within it. Majority of our programs are based in DC. However, in some instances, if we have a client or a family that is experiencing domestic violence and the areas that they have lived in within DC are not safe, then we will look at looking outside of Maryland and outside the perimeter in Virginia, and we will provide case management service, whether it's in Maryland or in Virginia, to that particular individual or family.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Our final two videos are about our wraparound services. First up is the Domestic Violence Support Center, where all survivors of domestic trauma are able to access free therapy. Here's Dr. Nicole Kibe, Program Coordinator, to tell us about the DVSC.
Hi, my name is Nicole Kibe, and I am the Program Coordinator at the House of Ruth Domestic Violence Support Center. The Domestic Violence Support Center is House of Ruth's outpatient counseling center. Most of our clients here come because they've had an acute instance of intimate partner violence, but many of our clients have had multiple instances of relational violence that have occurred beginning in childhood. Stabilization is always the immediate goal for trauma survivors. For our clientele, that often looks not only like emotional stabilization, but often assessing their basic safety needs, safe housing, adequate access to food, a lot of times getting services for their children. So we assess all of that and then work with individuals to either refer within House of Ruth or to our other community partners to address those needs. And then here at the Domestic Violence Support Center, we work to stabilize people emotionally so that they can kind of continue to build on that and move forward with their lives. All of our services here are entirely grant funded, so we're tremendously fortunate to be able to offer services at no cost to participants without any session limits. For about 75 to 80% of clients who come to the support center, we find that they experience a reduction in their trauma symptoms over the first few months of treatment. And we find that about 80% of them experience an improvement in functioning over that same time period. The best way to get started in counseling at the Domestic Violence Support Center is to give us a call. You'll talk to a counselor over the phone for a brief screening, and we'll get you set up for an intake appointment, usually in about a week. And we often have availabilities to get started in counseling the following week. I've been a counselor at the House of Ruth Domestic Violence Support Center for 16 years. Over that time, I've graduated to being the program coordinator. In that time, I've probably helped hundreds of domestic violence survivors recover from trauma and abuse. And it doesn't ever get old watching people kind of have that discovery where they realize that their life story to date doesn't have to continue to be how things go moving forward.
What a great program. We have Greg on the line from the Domestic Violence Support Center, and he can provide any questions about therapy or services offered through the House of Ruth Domestic Violence Support Center. Were there any questions?
Well, I have another question, if you don't mind, out of curiosity. There is a story for the house to be named after Ruth. What's the story of Ruth?
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Kiker, and I'm the Development Director at House of Ruth. There are many houses of Ruth in the United States, and they are based on a biblical story of Ruth, who, and Miss Sandra, you should maybe jump in here, helped another woman out. So that's what they were named after. And then there's another question I see, Soteria.
There is a question in the chat. It says, what is the intake process for therapy? In order to get connected with the House of Ruth Domestic Violence Therapy Center, the number is 202-597-5817. Once again, the number is 202-597-5817.
Yeah, hi everybody. So that the phone number that Soteria just provided, that's sort of that's the phone number that you would use to reach us. The process is pretty straightforward to getting therapy at the Domestic Violence Support Center. We do a brief screening with the prospective client over the phone at first, and that screening is asking for very general questions about their situation and what they are, what's brought them to the support center. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes. And then we would set up an intake appointment with them. And this, to let everybody know, we are equipped to do telehealth services to residents of the District of Columbia. The reason why we cannot provide that to residents of Virginia or Maryland is because of licensure, professional licensure requirements, where we can't cut across state lines to do that at this time. So if anyone is coming from DC or from Maryland or Virginia, they would have to come in person, and we are equipped to meet with people in person. Since early June, we've been fully staffed there. For the intake, the person would come either by telehealth or in person to meet with Nicole, the person that you saw in the video. She's our program coordinator. She meets with everybody and does a full session with them, an intake session where she's gathering a lot of information from them. And then if it seems like a good fit for the person, she would either offer to meet with that person herself in counseling or assign the person to either myself or our other colleague, Michelle. And from there, we can offer weekly sessions in counseling. And I've been here for 10 years, and I have to say, I mean, I've never encountered anything quite like our clinic. I mean, we really offer unlimited therapy to individuals, and really, you really cannot find that anywhere. And just as an anecdote, I've met with one person for 700 hours since I started at House of Ruth, and she's been coming here since 2004. So we really value stability in our clinic and consistency, and I just wanted to brag about us just for a little bit. But that's the general process.
Thank you. Thank you. Like I said earlier, House of Ruth is so much more than housing. Are there any questions, any other questions about the DVSC? The question in the chat says, what if they require medication?
If they're a DC resident, so unfortunately we do not have a psychiatrist on staff or medical doctors. So what we tend to do is refer our clients who seem to possibly need a medication evaluation to the various core service agencies within DC, or if they have private insurance, we would redirect them in that direction. So it would be we would refer them to another clinician if they did require medication.
Thank you, Greg. Last but not least is our free child development therapy center. It is located in a new building that just opened last month. Tara, our program director, will let you know what happens at Kidspace.
Hi, my name is Tara Villanueva. I'm the director at Kidspace, which is House of Ruth's Child Development Center. Kidspace provides all-day daycare for children aged 6 weeks to 5 years old. We work with families who are experiencing homelessness and have experienced other types of trauma, as well as families from the community. Here at Kidspace, we provide trauma-informed care, which means that we treat all of the children and their families in a very nurturing manner, and we provide all of the therapeutic services that any child needs, whether they're delayed or not, so that they're ready to go to school. At Kidspace, children and families get whatever they need. We provide all types of resources, whether they need clothing, help with finding housing, therapeutic services, whatever they need to get that great start in life that they haven't had to this point because of some of the things that they've experienced. All of the children that we have here have so much potential. All they need is the opportunity to shine. I've been at Kidspace for over 20 years now, and I've seen so many children and their families make so much progress. Families come in at first, and of course they're nervous about leaving their kids in childcare, but we really work on building a nurturing and trusting relationship both with the children and the parents, so that the children feel comfortable coming in and playing and learning, and so that the families are comfortable leaving their children with us. And they come back to us year after year and talk about how Kidspace has been vital in their child's academic and just life success. This year we moved into our brand new building, and it really showcases the great work that we do here with the children and the families. It's the environment that they deserve, new and packed full of all of the resources that they need to learn and grow. I love my job because it just means so much to me to be able to work with these families and their children. The fact that they put their trust in us with their children and open up to us and just allow us to help them is a really great honor, and it really means a lot to me.
I want to open it up one last time for any questions about Kidspace. We have Ms. Tara on the call with us today, and she can answer any questions that you may have about Kidspace.
I have a question. My son is in high school, and he would like to organize a book drive for the Kidspace with books from what age to what age should it be useful, and do you accept these in time of COVID? We can make sure we disinfect them really, really well before we give them. Do you have a book space?
Yeah, so our children here are age 6 weeks to 5. So for our infants and toddlers, they do use the board books that are, sturdy enough to withhold treatment by infants and toddlers. And then our preschoolers just use regular books. We do accept books. We go through a lot of books, and we like to have books on lots of different topics, depending on what the children are learning about and what they're interested in.
Thank you.
Sure.
Can I be in contact with you for that if I have more questions?
Sure, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I have a question. First, just congratulations on the opening of the new site. It's so exciting. Tara, I wonder if you could just share what your favorite thing is in the new site. What are you so excited that you have at this new space that you didn't have before?
there's no way I'll be able to narrow it down to one thing. So I'll probably have to give a couple. Number one, we have these great windows that children can go and look out by themselves. We haven't always had that in some of our past sites. We were here a long time ago, and then we had 2 transitional sites. And at our new site now, children can just go and look out the window. We have trees on our property, so Pennsylvania Avenue, so they can see lots of different things out the windows. And the whole center itself is just really bright and spacious and airy. So that's probably my number one favorite thing. We have some great indoor and outdoor space for the children to play. They go out twice a day, and then on rainy days there's a nice indoor space for them to play in as well. And it's just really bright and cheerful. There's so many great things about this building.
We were very excited about the opening of Kidspace. It's such a beautiful facility. Are there any more questions for Tara and the Kidspace program? The question in the chat says, how do survivors get connected to Kidspace? Is that a separate number?
Yeah, so if you want to get a hold of Kidspace to talk about doing an intake, it is a separate number. So we have our own intake process here at Kidspace. So you can call 202-667-7001 extension 223 to set up an intake.
Thank you. The next question says, do you use volunteers? How do I get to be one?
Well, right now during COVID, we're not using any volunteers at all. However, during normal times, we use volunteers, but only in certain cases. We do have high school students. We have some programs that we work with certain high schools to allow high school students to get community service hours. And we also work with the foster grandparent program for volunteers as well. And I think that's a program run by UPO. And they take volunteers aged 55 and older.
We also have Brittany Weaver, the House of Ruth volunteer specialist on the line, and she can provide more details about general volunteer opportunities with the House of Ruth.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brittany. I am the volunteer specialist at House of Ruth. Right now, just like was mentioned before, we are currently not doing in-person volunteering. However, we're always open to different ideas like drives or fundraising for the House of Ruth. Right now, we've been accepting a lot of meal drop-off donations, which we're so happy and appreciative of. Just so our clients can have that different option and just indulge and really enjoy things from the outside, as we can't do so much, during a pandemic. But, if anyone has any questions for me, you're more than welcome to email me at brittany.weaver@houseofruth.org, and I can provide more information on the volunteer program. Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. So we have a couple of questions in the chat that I wanted to ask to make sure that their questions were responded to. The first question, it says, do you take intake calls on the weekends? Greg, can you speak about the Domestic Violence Support Center first?
I can. So we do not take intake calls on the weekend, but we do, of course, accept them during the week, during business hours, and we do get back to people within 24 hours. It's been a little harder lately during COVID when some of us have been working at home and trying to, there's been a lot of phone tag, unfortunately, lately, but we do make every effort to get back to people within 24 hours. But to answer your question, no, we do not accept intake calls over the weekend.
The same is true for our coordinated intake line. We do not have an intake specialist here on the weekend, but we do return calls and emails on the Monday or the next business day. There was another question in the chat. Is there any legal help for women who decide to get a divorce? Are the services offered by lawyers free? House of Ruth DC does not provide legal assistance, but we do provide referrals to various community partners that can provide legal assistance. We have many partners that may be their specialty. So if we have a client that has identified that she wants legal assistance, we would partner her and link her up with services in the community. Benita, we had another question in the chat for you. Could you talk about the differences between DC versus Maryland? Does Scatter Sites provide services in Maryland?
Scattered sites, depending on the different, as I mentioned a little earlier, we have different programs. So we have some programs that are for singles, some that are for families, some of them are permanent housing, some of them are transitional housing, some of them are joint housing, meaning transitional the first year, permanent housing the second year. If there is an individual or a family that is experiencing a safety issue and they're unable to remain in DC, then we will look at referring them into alternative housing due to safety issues in Maryland or Virginia. But if not, most of our clients have to find apartments in the District of Columbia.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I want to open it up one more time if there are any questions for any of our programs. I know this was a lot of information. The videos will be posted on our website as well as on our social media accounts. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, all the various social media sites.
Maybe I could add to my French women listening to us that you can go on the website of House of Ruth, you can go into donations, and then there are some links to Amazon wish lists for different programs like the Kidspace or the transitional housing or the permanent housing. You can offer diapers or toys. You know, it's very concrete. It's just one click and you help a lot. So go ahead.
Thank you. We love the wish list. Definitely love the wish list. Thank you again for taking the time to spend with House of Ruth on today. Before we close out, I want to open it up for our President and CEO, Sandra Jackson, to give us some remarks.
Well, good morning again to all of you. I am so excited that you were able to join us this morning. I know your plates are full, but thank you for taking the time to be with us and learn a little bit more, perhaps about our programs, our services, how to connect with them. I want to give absolutely kudos to all of the staff that presented this morning, to Tyria for hosting this and doing the MC work. I am just so excited. We are very excited about all that we do here. And as Sateria said multiple times, we are much more than housing because we know that it takes more than housing for families, individuals and families and children to rebuild their lives. And we try to make sure that we are touching all of those points where they can be successful. So if you're interested, and thank you so much, Ms. Hart, for shouting us out with the wish list and all of the ways to connect to House of Ruth. You can go on our website and find all of those things that we talked about here today and how you might be able to get connected to us. Obviously, in this virtual world that we're living in right now, we did things a lot differently in terms of partnerships and connections directly with our programs. And hopefully we'll be able to get back to that very soon as things change, but there's still ways that we're creatively finding ways to make those connections. So we thank you this morning for being with us. And if you have further questions, as Sateria said, this information will be on our websites and you can certainly reach out to us at any time and we'll be glad to help you. Thank you so much. And all of you have a wonderful, wonderful weekend and happy spring.
Yay, spring. Thank you. Thank you. Definitely, if you want additional information, like I said, the videos will be posted. And thank you so much. And we can't wait to see you post-pandemic.
And thank you so much to Dan Morris, Eric, the videographer, and the editor, and the amazing subject matter team for all of your great work making this successful.
Thank you very much.